All right, hello again. So in this video, we're going to go over how to use web fonts. We're going to do that a couple of different ways. We'll use some Google fonts, which are pretty easy to do, and then we'll also do it using downloadable fonts from Font Squirrel, I believe. So a couple things, a little bit of review. So hopefully you knew this. I think you guys do, but you're going to use the font family CSS property to apply fonts or to assign fonts, right? And then you're going to see more than one font, right? You're usually going to see a font name or two and then end up with a generic font style like serif or sans serif. That's called a font stack, right? And the idea is that the browser will use the first font that it finds that it has access to. So remember that when you're serving web pages, you can only show, or the user will only show fonts that are on their own computer or that you've made into web fonts. There are a list of web-safe fonts. They're called web-safe fonts. These are fonts that are pretty much on most systems. Most of them are from Microsoft, weirdly. Developed by Microsoft or purchased by Microsoft or whatever. But there's not a whole lot of them, right? So if you're only using those fonts, it can get a little bit, let's say, boring or monotonous. So we're going to use some Google fonts, which are also going to get monotonous because a lot of people use the same fonts, but there's quite a few fonts available. We're also going to use some fonts from Font Squirrel, and this is what we're going to do. We're going to make this page about the font zombie apocalypse. It's hard to say, apocalypse, and change a couple of fonts on here. These two are Google fonts, and this one is one from Font Squirrel. All right, so hopefully I gave you, if I was a nice guy this time, and gave you guys the start file. It looks like, let me make that one appear. Looks like this, right? So right now it doesn't have any custom fonts. It's all actually default, which is Times or Times New Roman usually. It's usually a sans serif or a serif font, Times or Times New Roman by default, but we're gonna specify that. So the first thing I'm gonna do is make sure that we're using Times. Times actually is not bad for this body copy. So we'll stick with it. It kind of looks a little bit, it doesn't look very modern. It looks like it has this sort of quality that might go with zombies. I think it's not a sans serif font. It's a serif font, which has that more traditional sort of feel. So I'm going to go inside here under the body style and just add, and I put some notes in here for you guys too, some comments, add Times here. So I'm going to say font family, and then I'm just going to pick the one with Times New Roman, Times, and serif. And you probably won't see a change. I think I did see a tiny change for some reason. But there you go. And then remember too, if there is more than one word in the name of the font, there is going to be a single quote. You can use double quotes too, but usually it's going to be a single quote around that. That tells the browser that you're looking at, you're looking for this whole name right here. So just again, to reiterate that, you are kind of, right now we're using fonts that are already on the computer. So that's why that works. But if you want to use anything that's not a web-safe font or something that's not on the computer, there's no guarantee that these will even be on every computer, but they usually are. But if you want to use something else, you're going to have to use a web font. So let's do Google Fonts first. So I just go to, I'm just going to look up fonts in Google. It's kind of hard to look up because if you say Google Fonts, it thinks you're looking up fonts, but we're looking up Google Fonts. I don't know, it's a little redundant. So it looks like this, or that's the link for it. And then I'm going to make this a little bigger so you guys can see a little better. So there's a lot of stuff in here now. And this site or service changes a lot, seems like. So there are articles in here about styling text and how fonts work and basic typography, all kinds of interesting stuff, which we're not going to get into. But yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff in here. There's also filters and things, so you can pick styles based on keywords. If I wanted to see, and I found the fonts that we're going to use under Vintage. I think they're both under Vintage. So if I click on Vintage here, which says feeling, right? I can show my feelings. Then I get these fonts that have, some of these have a feel that might work for this web page about zombies, right? Scary fonts and things like that. There's other things you can see in here. You can say serif. You can filter a lot of different ways. Calligraphy, serif, or sans serif. Different types of serif, different types of sans serifs. There are variable fonts in here as well, which are a little bit newer, and they are scalable in different ways. We're not going to get into that because it gets a little more complicated. We want to keep this one a little bit shorter. You can filter by the number of styles, so that's down here at the bottom. So a lot of these are display or decorative fonts that only have one style. You can see it says one style right there for that one, right? So that means there's only one version of it, but some of these will have a lot of more than one or a lot. You can say what you want to see in here. I'm going to say zombies are so cool. And then you'll see that copy in the examples, which helps, right? So this is all meant to help you pick out display fonts usually, but other types of fonts too that you're going to use on your website. So there's other things in here as well. There's icons available for Material Design. Material Design is Google's Android design or Google's design system. There's also a bunch of cool articles about choosing type and web fonts, and which is what we're doing right now, actually, variable fonts, things like that, how to use variable fonts. Like I said, we're not going to get into it in this one, but there's a lot of information there. Also, I think I gave you, if I was nice, this article about frightfully free fonts, 6 Google fonts for Halloween designs. We're going to use a couple of these. We're going to use Creepster and... yeah, I'm forgetting the other one, but I'll remember that in a second. So, okay, so let's go ahead and to save a little time, I'm going to search by name for Creepster because you could spend a week going through here and picking fonts out. It's a good way to spend a lot of time. So here is Creepster. You can see what it looks like. And you can change the size here. There's only one style. This is regular 400, right? So that's what it looks like. It's all caps, right? So this is not another typography tip, right? This is not something you would put body copy in. That would be not very readable. It's really made for display and headings and things. Bigger type, right? That's easier to read. So no one wants to read a full page in this font. Even though it looks kind of fun, it's going to be not good. You can also click on Type Tester and try out some different things and scaling and everything like that. We're not going to really get into that because we're going to get through this thing in one day. There's also information about the font. There's the license. So the good thing about all the fonts in this Google Fonts service is you can use them on the website. So that's a good point. In that fonts, when you're using web fonts, you can't just use any old font. Maybe you bought a font and you think it's cool and you're gonna make it a downloadable font or a web font on your website. You can't really do that because basically you're distributing the font when you do that. So you're probably breaking a license. Some licenses or some fonts are licensed so that you can use them as a web font and they get distributed that way. So you have to be careful about that. But all the Google fonts, as far as I know, are licensed for use on the web. Not all of them are on Font Squirrel, which we'll see. All right, so there's Creepster. Going back to Specimen here just to see what it looks like. Then when I want to use that font, I just click over here. And like I said, this interface changes, seems like daily. But right now I'm just going to click on Get Font. And then it'll say Get Embed Code or Download. I'm not going to download it. I'm going to get the embed code. But I'm going to add another font before I do that because we're going to use 2 Google fonts. So I'm going to go back to Fonts. And then I'm going to go down to the bottom where it says number of styles, and I'm going to go to 2. I think it has 2 or 2 or more. And that will start to filter out fonts that don't have more, don't have, or only have one style, right? So you can see there's 1,840 total font families in here, but now we're down to 835 because we said 2 styles. The more I raise this to number of styles, the smaller this number right there is going to get because now I'm looking at fonts that have 5 styles or 8 styles, and eventually I'll get to not very many. Roboto is used by Android, so and Open Sans is very popular too. All right, so I'm going to do 2, but I'm actually just going to search for the font that I want because I don't want to look through all these. But that's a way that you can find fonts that have more than one version. So maybe a lot of times people use a single font and then different weights or different styles for different types of headings, things like that. So that's a possibility just to keep in mind. That's kind of why I'm showing you that. So the font we're going to use is called Almendra. Sounds like a cool planet. So here's Almendra. And it has, how many styles does it have? It has quite a few styles. So here now we can see different styles. It's got regular 400, regular italic 400. The 400, by the way, if you didn't know, that's the weight. So it's a 100 to 900 scale. And if they're variable fonts, you can go in between, like between 400 and 500. But normal fonts you might see with more than one weight are going to be 400, 500, 600. So the higher the number, the more boldy it is. I made that word up. The more bold it is. So this one has more than one style. That's why I wanted to use this one so I could show you how that works. So I'm going to click Get Font on that one. And now you can see up here, it looks like a shopping bag. I'm not paying for these, but I have two fonts. It says View Selected Families, but here they are. So I've got Creepster, and then I've got Almendra. And I think both of these kind of look cool for our webpage. So what I'm going to do now is click Get Embed Code right here. I could download them too and do it using an at font face rule, but I'll show you how to do that with Font Squirrel in a minute. So I'm going to click on Get Embed Code, and it's really simple. Basically what you do is you can either choose link or import. I'm going to link just to make it a little bit easier. I'm going to click on Copy Code here. This is the embed code that goes in the head. It says right there, right? I'll make this a little bigger for you guys. The embed code that goes in the head of your HTML. I'm going to click Copy Code. I'm going to go back to my web page where it says Add Google Font link here. I'm trying to be helpful. And I'm going to paste. So now that is some links to basically a Google service to distribute those fonts to you. So I skipped over the part about the advantage of Google Fonts. The advantage is they're hosted by Google. So you don't have to worry about, are they on your website or not? Did you download them? Are they in the right place? That kind of stuff. The downside is they're hosted by Google. So maybe Google turns off a font or changes its service and you don't know it and your fonts disappear. Or they also are probably tracking, Google tracks everything. Did you guys know that? So they're probably, I don't know how they're using this to track things, but they might be using this. This just, it's a conspiracy theory that I have. Anyway, but it is easy to use and it's pretty cool. So I thought I'd show you guys. All right. So here is the Creepster class. So these are the styles that you're going to use to apply these. These are called utility classes usually, I think. So basically I'm going to add a class to whatever I want to use that font. So I'm just going to copy the code there. And now I'm going to go down below. I'm just going to go down below this H2 green style right here. But before it's the Font Squirrel code, I'm going to paste. That's hard, huh? So I copy and paste. Now I'm going to do the one for Almendra. You see there's more than one. There's one for Creepster, and there's 4 for Almendra because there are 4 different styles. That's the idea, right? So I'm going to copy the code, and I don't have to use them all either. I don't have to copy them all. I could just use one, but I'm going to use all. Or I'm going to show you how you can use different versions. So I'm going to copy the code, and then I'm going to paste in there. So now I have all these styles, 1 for Creepster and 4 for Almendra. All right, so let's see what this page looks like again. I think I have it open, but yes, this is it right here. So right now I have no change. If I refresh, there's no change or anything. I did click preview down here, so you have to have the live server running. I'll do that again just so you see that. I'm going to click on Go Live down here, right? And then here's the page. So nothing's changed yet. We haven't used these fonts, but just to use them is pretty easy. All I have to do is go down and apply them. So I'm going to go down to the H1 that says, I'm going to zoom in here so you can see this a little better. I'm going to go down to the H1 that says, Welcome to the Font Zombie Apocalypse. That's this one. Let me get this out of the way. And I'm going to add that class. So I just say class equals, and then it's called, what was it called? It was called Creepster Regular. So if I have the extensions installed that we talked about at the beginning of the class, then that should pop up. If it doesn't, you can type the whole thing in yourself. It's a little more work. But there you go. So Now I have class equals Creepster regular on there, and this is now Creepster. Pretty cool, huh? So if I right click on that and inspect just to make sure that you guys know what's going on and I know what's going on, if I roll over that, select that right, and I go to styles, you can see that it's using font family, Creepster, and then System UI is just the default. I probably will, I could actually change that. Let me turn that on and off. So that's back to times. Let's actually change that just so it's not going to use the system default if Creepster doesn't work. I'm going to go in here and put in the same stuff that's up here, actually, because times was not too bad, actually. It might be better than whatever the system default is. So I'm going to copy that. So that's the times, the stuff from the top. And I'm going to go down and edit this a little bit. I'm just going to insert that. Make sure that you have the commas in the right place. So it's going to use Creepster if it doesn't have that, which it should, but maybe the server went down or somebody, Skynet attacked Google or something. Maybe it doesn't work. So then it's going to use Times New Roman if this Creepster doesn't work. And if it doesn't have that, it's going to use Times, and then it's going to use a serif, and then it'll use System UI, which is just the default on the system. A little more of a backup is all that is. There you go. So there's Creepster. Let's go down on number 2 here, the second one, and we're going to use Almendra. So let's try Almendra Bold. So I'm going to go right here. I'm going to copy the class name without the dot, and then I'm going to go down to H2. So H2 already has a class on it. It's called Orange, right? Orange is already in your style. Sorry, I'm zooming up and down. Hopefully I'm not going too fast for you guys. There's the orange. So it has a style. It's just a color. And then I'm going to go down here to the H2, which is this one right here. And I'm going to go in there and make a space, right? This is how you apply more than one class. And you can see Almendra Bold's already on there because it's alphabetical. I'm just going to go hit return. And now it's using, ooh, that is pretty good. Almendra Bold. I like that one. It's a little, yeah, I think it's good. It's a little dense, but it's just for a little bit of text for a heading, so that's fine. When a font is bolder, heavier stroke, it is a little bit of an impact on readability, but this is just for a heading, so I think we're okay. By the way, I didn't tell you this, but this text that you're seeing here is from a site, which I hope is there still. If you look up zombie Ipsum text, you see it talks about a bunch of zombie stuff in Latin. Yeah, fun stuff. There's all kinds of Ipsum text available. Okay, so that is that one. So we have a font working here. This is our default Times font. This is another different font working here. If I wanted to change that, I could go up and just apply one of these other styles. Regular italic, bold italic, or just regular if I wanted to. Pretty easy, right? Okay, so now we're going to do, this is a little more complicated to add a font from Font Squirrel using the @FontFace CSS. So I'm going to go to Font Squirrel. This is fontsquirrel.com. There's other sites like this, but this one I always liked. It's kind of fun. Has a lot of fonts again, and you can download them and use them, but depends what kind of license it has, like I said before. So I'm going to go down here and make sure that I show you. If you want to use this on the web, if you want to use a font on the web, you probably want to go down here to font filter, which is filtering the fonts, right? I'm going to click on web font. So now I should only see fonts that are licensed for web use, hopefully. So there's a ton of those in there. It's a bunch of fun fonts. You can play around those if you want to. But I'm going to go to one that I know we're going to use. It's called Bloody. So I'm going to go Bloody. Just gross. I know I picked a gross name here. I'm gonna go Bloody, and there is, whoops, I just accidentally clicked on it. Bloody. Now I'm typing the wrong way. There we go. So this is Bloody. So it'll show you what it looks like, just like on the Google Fonts, right? You can see specimens and you can see the different sizes, the numbers. See, this is another font. Here's a good example of that. You would not want to use that font for body copy. It's just not very readable. It's only really for headings, display headings, big headings, things like that. You can click test drive and you can change the text, zombies, whatever you type there will appear in that font. That's kind of fun, right? It's the same thing we just did before. This shows you all of the letters and numbers, if there are numbers available, or special characters. So that's all the glyphs in the font. And then there's the license. This one is licensed for use on the web. And then we're going to click on Web Font Kit. So you could download the TTF, that's a TrueType font, but that's not really what's used the most on the web nowadays. Usually you're going to use WAF. So it does tell you right here that WAF, WAF stands for Web Only File Format. That's a good trivia question that will bore people. But WAF is Web Only File Format. It's recommended, works in all modern browsers. There are 3 other types. There's TrueType fonts, which are used in print quite a bit. EOT is an IE, an older version of a font file for IE. I would not bother with that at all. And then SVG used to be something that was used on Apple devices and other things back in the day. SVG is still used, but it's not necessary for web fonts. So we only need the WAF version. So I think it's already checked by default. So I'm going to click on Download at Font Face Kit. So I click on that. Nothing happens. Oh, it did happen. And here I have it in my downloads, and it's called Bloody Font Face Kit. That is gross. Sorry about that. Inside of there, let me copy that. I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to go to the desktop and paste it there. And then I'm going to show you what's in here. So it says how to use web fonts. There's a web page in there. You can double click that. It shows you how web fonts work. Here's the @font face code. So this is CSS that you can put into your code, and then you can access this font file. This is the generic, this is web font is not the name of the font. This will be different depending on whatever font you're using. And then here's the link. That is an example. There's an easier way to do that. We're going to go to inside a web font, and then there's Bloody Normal Macroman. And then it says Bloody Demo. Yeah, all this bloodiness is terrible. This is the kind of what we saw before. Shows what it looks like. And there's that. And then if we go back here, there's specimen files. There's the actual font. Here's the style sheet. So this is just images and a grid and some CSS and things. But here's the specimen style sheet, and here's the style sheet. Let me open this in, I'm going to open this just in a text editor. Where's my text editor? Let's see. Actually, I'm going to get here. Yeah, okay. So I just double clicked in and it opened in my default text editor, which is BBEdit in my case. And it opened in another window, so I got that over. Here it is. So this is what we actually want. So what I did was I went into the web fonts and I went into Bloody Normal. It gets kind of buried in here a little bit. And then I look for style sheet. There it is right there. And then this is it, right? So this is the @font face CSS that you're going to just copy and paste again. So you see it looks like that other example that I showed that said web font, but now it has the actual font name in there. We don't have all these fonts, so I could truncate this and delete some of this. We don't have the EOT. This is formatted for older browsers and things that had some trouble with font, @font face, but now they don't. But it'll still work the way it is. I'm making something too complicated. I'm just going to copy and paste it, even though we don't have all these different types of font files. I'm going to say copy. I could have downloaded those, but I didn't. And then I'm going to go up to my code here. And it says add code from Font Squirrel to use the font Bloody and correct the path. So I paste that in. I'm going to format this. I'm going to go right click and format document to clean it up a little bit. So now we can see that we have that font in there. There's no path here though, right? This just says that the font is this is a URL, much like in a background image or something. So it's saying that the font is in the same folder as my web page, which it's not. So here is my font folder. I'm going to right click on that and go to Reveal in Finder. There's my font folder. This is the page that we're working on right now. There's nothing in the font folder. That's where I want to put the actual font file. Sorry, that gets a little complicated, but basically what we're doing is we're downloading the font file, which is this one. We're going to put it in the font folder. So I'm going to copy that and paste it here. So now Bloody Web Font is in the font folder. This is the page we're working on. So now I have to fix that path, right? My path says that that font is just in the same folder, but it's not. So what do I have to put? Hopefully you know that. I have to put fonts / and then the name of the font. So if I go, and you're going to do that everywhere you see Bloody. So I'm going to put fonts / and there it is, right? I can copy and paste, do that faster. And I could do this other ways too. Multiple cursors, all that kind of fun stuff. But it's pretty fast if I do it this way. If these would get out of the way. So if I wanted to, when I did that in the first place, I could have downloaded these other TrueType and SVG files, but it's not really necessary. But then these styles will work, but they work anyway. It's just going to use the WAF file, which is this one, right? WOFF. It's going to use this first one, which is good. All right. So that is it. So all I did was I pasted in, I went and got the style sheet, opened the style sheet here. I copied and pasted it into my file. And it's just in your styles. Make sure you're in your styles at the bottom. And then I corrected the path so that it says fonts / and then the actual font. Here's the font, right? Inside my fonts folder. So I had to add fonts. Easy enough, I guess. All right, so if I want to use that font, just like we did before, we're going to use this from @FontFace. So it says font family Bloody Normal. So I'm going to copy that. And then I'm going to go up to where it says H2 green, right? So there's already a green style on there. It's H2.green, which means an H2 with a class of green, which this one is. It's down here. So it's H2 class green. So I don't need to add anything to that. It's going to be inside the green, the style for H2.green. So I'm going to go up here and I'm going to say font family, and then I'll paste that in. That's the name, right? And then I'll do the times part again. I'll do this part just to be safe. So I've got Bloody Normal. And then I've got backup is Times New Roman, and then the next backup is Times, and then Serif, and then System UI. And if I look over here, there we go. There is Bloody. That's cool, right? I hope you guys like that. So here we're using, up at the top, we're using a font, a web font from Google. This one's a Google font, and this one is one that we are hosting ourselves. So the downside, I forgot to mention that, the downside of doing it this way is you have to get the font file, right? You have to put it on your server. You have to jump through these hoops to link it. It's not that big a deal, but it is a little more work than using the Google fonts. The upside is you have it yourself, right? You have more control. If Google's servers go down, it's not going to affect you. If your server goes down, it's going to affect everything, right? So, but I think that is about it. So hopefully that helps a little bit with using web fonts. So it's getting a little bit late, a little bit dark outside, so I'm gonna end that here. Wait, oh, something's in the room.